welcome to the 4Corners podcast. I'm Brad, and I am joined by Shad.
Hey, everybody.
Matt may pop in this evening, but there's no promise there. It's summer, so before we did this as a live stream, we would just double record and stuff. But, we're doing this live every week, so it kind of...
Sometimes this is how it happens.
Yeah. So we have, I think we previewed this last week. So this week we're doing... So there's some parameters to this. So we're doing the worst world champions per company, but there are some there are some parameters to this. So for starters, there's going to be no non-wrestlers. And then the other thing is it's actual reigns. So like you could have someone that you'd be like, well, why'd they pick them? It's like, well, we picked their specific title reign. Because it could be they came back, 10 years later and they weren't effective, things like that. And then we tended to, I think Shad did the same thing. We tended to avoid guys that had belts like when the company was essentially dead, because they're not going to have good creative. They're not going to draw. I think there's a topic to be talked about that we've touched on in the past about there's a point where you can get so cold you can't do anything about it. There's a point of no return.
There's a point where your your inertia is so down you're never going to get back going again. And
I know you didn't work for...
Or if you are, it's going to be a very long, slow process. Like for the NWA to rebuild to something more recognizable would take it quite a while to pull off from where it's at right now.
Well, they sabotage themselves all the time.
Well, that's part of what I'm saying.
Now, did you ever work for I know you didn't work a ton of places. You tended to have I don't know what 2 or 3 you worked, but did you ever work for a company that was just in that walking zombie territory?
I don't think so. There might be some people that might argue the fact, but I don't, at least while I was there, I don't think so.
Okay. I think it's a little harder.
There was one that...
Oh, go ahead, sorry.
There was one that I was invited to that I very specifically did not go to for a number of reasons. And that might have been part of one of them, but I would kind of sniff around before I went to a new place, and because if they were if they put an invitation like, hey, why don't you guys come do some stuff with us? Okay, cool. Let me sniff around a little bit. Or, hey, you should come work my show. I bet you'd be really over. I'm like, And there was, like I said, there was one where, no, I'm not showing up there. Period.
Now, could you, the one you didn't want to work, can you pick up the stink of a promotion if you work it a couple times? Can you pick up, the stigma of it? I know that's, probably less so on, the bigger stage, because, even if you're going to go work Impact, LOL TNA thing, but, hey, they probably pay better than most companies. But is there, oh, you worked for that guy? You're a little sussy in my...
Well, what I would do is I kept trying to cultivate relationships with folks that I found to be stand-up guys, right? I was cordial with almost everybody, but there would be people who I could be confident with that would at least give me a straight answer, an honest answer about it. And so, that particular one, they hit me up, and I saw the guy at the next show. I was like, this place hit me up. He goes, oh, here, let me show you this. And pulled film from some video he shot. He worked their shows once and showed it to me, and when they're like, oh no, this guy's a big attraction, and it's this dumb kid who is basically uncoordinatedly flinging himself off of the second or third rope at you without really thinking about how the hell he's going to land. It's like, no, 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 he's real over there. I'm like, no, no, I'm not doing this. There's no way. Also, when you have a big old white guy doing a Native American gimmick, I'm immediately a little like,
Yeah.
no.
Has anyone ever been like, you could make lots of money? It's like Ian Rotten, take the fake mustache off. It's like,
No, no, I've
damn
never
it,
had
foiled
that.
again.
I've never had that one.
So that's kind of our criteria. This is not really to dump on anyone. Like the people we pick, there's going to be like a business concern, there's a creative concern, and sometimes it's not even their fault. I would say, in some cases, it's not necessarily their fault. So do we want to just start with the big one? Do we just want to go WWE right off the bat?
Sure, sure, we can
So
start there.
I actually really struggled with the WWE one because, unlike a lot of these other companies, they've existed through a number of eras, most of the eras. Um, when you really break it down, they haven't had like a ton of bad champions, I would say.
It has seemed that the company historically has been largely hesitant to throw their big title on someone they don't have faith in or someone that might be a risky bet. Now they've had the benefit of having
They're idiot proof to a degree, but
they've had the benefit of having the WWE title, the world title, the ECW title.
yeah.
Like they had lesser world titles that they could use for that. And so if it didn't work, then they're like, well, we're not going to elevate him further. I mean, everybody knew that it's not on the same level, even if it's a top belt for that particular show.
Yeah.
Nobody's like the WWE CW champion is going to be on the same tier as whoever the WWE champion is at the time.
And they had like the benefit of 30 years of, we're going to have our big babyface act that's going to hold the belt for years and turn back the heel challengers. And then we're going to do a transitional title reign to someone else.
Well, largely, but not entirely.
Yeah, because like there are people that are going to say, and I mean, I've fallen into that before I saw footage of him, and you'd see that like people are gonna say like Stan Stasiak, and the thing is, Stan Stasiak was a transitional champion. He had the belt for 9 days. He just existed for the sake of getting the belt from Pedro to Bruno, and on top of that, I shared some stuff with Shad. I don't know if he watched it, but I actually watched some Stan Stasiak footage recently. I gotta say, I actually really like him. He's really good promo. He's pretty solid in the ring. He looks like he is a solid journeyman that worked everywhere because he got heat real easy and he knew what he was doing. But like, if you go watch some of his promos in Portland, he seems like a quality heel.
He was just someone I wasn't real familiar with, and so when we were kind of batting this idea around, by the way, full credit, this idea came from somebody on Twitter, and I didn't think to write down the name, so this is not an original idea. Just put that out there. But when we were batting this around, I was like, was Stasiak any? It's just, it wasn't dumping on the guy. I just didn't know.
I think he gets a bad rap too because his son Sean is kind of a bit of a nothing. Like really good physique, but then like any kind of like he's technically kind of okay, and then there's just really not much there.
Well, and let's also be fair. It's not like the guy exactly was matched up to the best gimmicks either. I mean, when your gimmick is you wear tights that look like underwear, and you're the boy toy for PMS.
And then he had Planet Stasiak. I still don't understand what that was.
I think it was just supposed to be like an oddball gimmick that he cut a really good opening promo with, but I don't know. Number one, I can't remember if he ever got another opportunity to cut another one, or if he did, if it had the follow up that one did. Because that first one was actually pretty good.
But didn't
But
it kind of turn him into like a quasi like warrior spoof a bit too as it
just
went?
it just kind of a weirdo gimmick, as I remember.
I will
So
say like in WCW, like when they were kind of doing like he was like ripping off like Mr. Perfect, like
mhm.
I don't think that was amazing, but I thought it was okay. I was like, oh,
You know what? That's fair because pairing him up with Stacy Keibler really worked. And yeah, that I would say that was probably the best that we saw him, at least on TV. And it's part of it is just because my memory for that particular WCW era is not complete.
I've
You know,
yeah,
I
well,
remember
I've
pieces of it.
I've never gone back and revisited any of it, so it's like 20 something year old memories now. Now I will say so with WWE, I feel like when I started getting down, so there's I think the main options are Hogan's 93 run, Diesel, Shawn Michaels like stuff in 95 and 96, Triple H, you can pick any number of those after he came back. Um, there's probably, I would say, Jinder Mahal. I'd say there's probably a Randy Orton one in there too if you really wanted to dig into it. And
So for me, it
oh,
was
and
down
Seth,
between.
Seth Rollins would all Seth Rollins because like people, he's a good worker and stuff, but his reigns were colossal failures.
And I would not. If his reigns were not successful, I do not put that on him. Frankly, I put that on how he was booked. But
He's not a
for
world
me,
champion, I don't think either. I think that's part of the problem.
we'll get into Seth in a little bit. But
But he's not my pick.
no, my pick boiled down between either Jinder Mahal's reign, because I'm pretty sure I have gone on record on here before talking about how much I hated that reign.
You know what drove me
Jinder,
nuts about Gender is it was entirely in ring for me and the lack of build. Like his entrance, awesome. Like the
mhm.
presentation, awesome. Like the Singh brothers, awesome. Like awesome managers. Like the whole act was great, except for the in ring was terrible and he had no
Oh
credibility.
God, the in ring made me the in ring made me straight up angry. They popped him up with no build,
Hmm. He won
and they
like
said,
a.
okay,
Didn't he win like a match to get into that or whatever?
yeah, it's something like he had one match and then got in and won the title. And the idea, I think, was that they wanted him to be, you know,
He's supposed to
front
help
and
them
center.
for India, for the India
Yeah,
shows.
and they didn't even find someone who spoke the dominant language in India. They spoke someone because he spoke Punjabi, and I might be wrong with the names, but I'm pretty sure. I know he spoke Punjabi
No,
because he said that outright, but
there
I'm
was
pretty sure the
someone
dominant language is Hindi. And
there was someone on PWO at the time that spoke Punjabi that said that's what he was speaking.
yeah, he said that in a promo. He said, I will now address you in my native language of Punjabi. And it's like, okay, but that's not the dominant language in India. I'm pretty sure that's Hindi. And God, his in ring was atrocious. It was all punch, kick, and his finish. That was because when we watched that Punjabi prison match. That's all he did. That it was maybe we can draw a line between kick and stomp, but it was punch, kick, and his finish, which is a Cobra Clutch Slam. That's it. And I'm like, this is the guy that you're wanting to get everyone to rally behind in like the second most populous country in the world. You want everybody to rally behind this guy who came out of nowhere, won out of nowhere, so it's really transparent what they're doing, and can't work yet. Like,
Well,
I'm watching a WWE pay-per-view going, I can't believe that I was shocked at myself for thinking I'm better in the ring than this guy is. And maybe that's not fair, but
he wasn't great.
I'm watching this going, whoa. And it went on for like 6 months.
Well, and the worst part was, so they like cut that India tour way short because
Yeah.
the thing is, like, they're not the first company, and they won't be the last company that's tried to crack India as a market, because TNA did that ring kicking and stuff because there's a lot of people there, but then these companies go there and realize there's like not money to be made.
There aren't people buying tickets. They're watching it on TV, but they're not buying tickets. Now, I thought the Ring Ka King, actually, out of everything that's gone to India, I thought it was the one that did pretty well, comparatively. But even still, that's a given the idea going in that there's a billion people that live in India, and you're like, oh man, we'll make lots of money. It's like, no, they don't all have disposable income, so you're not going to make a lot of money. But for me, it was either between Jinder or it was between Reign of Terror, Triple H. And the thing that stands out in my mind the most was the WrestleMania angle with Booker T.
That's the reign I would have picked because so you had the Booker T angle. So this one's that reign's a little closer to my heart because they did the Hell in the Cell with him and Michaels. They did that in Columbus.
Okay.
And they literally, that killed the market to the point I don't think we got a pay-per-view for 15 years. And like they didn't draw for a long time after that. Because if you don't remember, they had that Hell in the Cell. It was like 45 minutes. And they used the cage like twice.
I do remember watching it and just thinking, why is this in a cell? Because they're not using the gimmick at all.
Or remember he stole it from Undertaker. Remember it was Undertaker's gimmick to start with, and then Triple H made it his gimmick and just had like crap match after crap match in there.
Like the good Hell in a Cell that he had was with Foley, and that's because Foley was very intentionally trying to build him up.
Yeah, and now
the one he had with Batista, even though Batista was not great, and so
then
for me, it's between Reign of Terror or Jinder Mahal.
And then the other bad one. So I would pick that of the Triple H ones because of the Booker thing, because of the having the racist win. But then that's also the Frank won't like this because he mentioned Goldberg's his least favorite. But remember that reign also featured the original Elimination Chamber where they finally got it right with Goldberg. They finally caught it, and then Triple H just pins him like boom, like off of one move.
Yeah, and they were like, okay, even if Goldberg doesn't beat everyone, you want to see him be, this big badass who rips through people. Okay, cool. And they go through the whole Elimination Chamber and doing that, and like you said, one pedigree and that's it.
Yep.
And the thing that kills me about that is we had this entire run of effectively Triple H pissing on everybody. Now, the reason that I'm torn between the two of these things is, number one, even in that particular era, interest was up because people just wanted to see Triple H lose. They were, and whenever he didn't, people would fall away, and then it comes back, it's like, well, who's he up against this time? It's like, oh, Goldberg? Okay, maybe that'll do it. And then, but there would be interest that would come back in waves, as opposed to Jinder's reign that didn't even succeed in its intended purpose.
And I have to be fair to Triple H as much as I don't want to be, because I cannot stand him, but there were a lot of mitigating factors to the fall off when he was champion. Like Spike TV was a total fiasco for them.
Yeah, that's true.
They could never, for some reason, that move. I don't remember. Spike might have been in Les Holmes in than USA, but it was really weird because I think they did downgrade how many homes they were in, but I don't think it was like significant. But like they just never had the same pull on Spike that they did on USA. Like even as diminished as they were when they went back to USA, like it just felt right again.
See, they went to Spike because Spike was on the rise,
Yeah.
right? Spike as a network was coming up. It was getting more attention. They were doing things that were drawing people in to watch. And so WWE, even though it was in fewer homes, did not have the weight to throw around to do special events or not get preempted or something like that. And USA had that good working relationship with them for so long that when they went back to USA, there was less of that stuff happening. And so that I think that's why it felt right for that company to go back to that network.
Yeah, they just because I remember, I mean, they got cold pretty quickly after going to Spike, like which was some mistakes that happened and just the way the company was going and some bad luck with injuries. But you could tell like the second they went on Spike, like they took a hit.
Yeah. Well, and it's just not USA was just straight up more widespread because Spike had used to be TNN, the Nashville network, so
Yeah.
it was regional. And they're in the middle of this rebrand and trying to expand, and in doing so, they're not in every market like USA was. And so I don't know this, but I'm just spitballing it as an example. So when they go to like Tacoma or Portland or something like that, not as many homes out there have TNN. Why would it be in their base cable package? Because it's, 3 time zones away, and it's not a major broadcast network. Even as on the rise as they were, and then, later falling back off. Now, TNN was smart because TNN used WWE as lead-in for Ultimate Fighter, and they got the first season of they got Ultimate Fighter's early seasons and did a really good job with them.
Mm-hmm.
But they still just didn't have the same widespread availability.
UFC got the fuck off of there real quick too.
They did. I mean, that was the springboard for them. They went there, they got a pretty good deal, and then they used that to move on to something bigger. So, hey, credit to Dana White, smart move. But it's
No, Dana White's interesting because he really, like, I don't think he gets quite enough credit. Like, he gets credit, but I don't think people realize, like, how much, like, he really took MMA from being, like, kind of a mess to being, like, a major American sport. Well, major global sport.
Yeah, it was a really big deal from going from being stigmatized as, the human cockfighting thing, to being, what more like what we have now. So credit to him. That's good. But to go back to the original point, business, it was better at the time. They were also having a lot of the WCW people that did not do the invasion that were kind of rotating through at this time, so it was also kindling more interest as it went.
Yeah.
So as much as I really, really, really hate that title reign. Like, I hate that damn title reign so much. I don't understand how you go into WrestleMania, biggest show of the year, the one where the baby faces win, it's your big blow-off show, all that, the feel-good show of the year, and you run a racism angle, and the racist wins. I do not understand how you do that.
And remember, it was like the minute-long cover for the
pin. It was seriously, it was like 2 minutes between the pedigree and the cover, and it was insulting.
There's
It,
a
it was
there's
it was.
another one. There's another
Booker
one.
broke out the Harlem Hangover for the first time in years,
There's another
and
one he did. Oh, I don't remember what year it was. I should have looked it up. There's one where like it's like 2007 or 2008 where like Randy Orton kind of finally was getting some momentum as a heel, and then like Triple H just like randomly beat him on a pay-per-view because like for being like in Evolution and supposedly being like someone that he should have been helping along, like Triple H like cut Randy Orton's balls off like repeatedly
yeah,
throughout his career. And I don't even like Randy Orton, but he got done dirty by Triple H like repeatedly.
yeah, and
I think it was when Legacy was like that like 4 month period where like Legacy was hot. Is that what it
mhm,
was called? Because it was like
yeah,
him, it was Ted
him,
DiBiase,
Cody, and DiBiase Jr.
and then Alpha
Cody,
Jr. There was a
I don't
Samoan.
think so. I don't remember that part,
Yeah, it was
but
because I think didn't DiBiase Jr. and Cody had the tag titles at one point, I think.
I think so.
Wow, what different career trajectories. Cody
Well,
is now the world champion, and is Ted Jr. the one that is going to be
went to
doing
jail, yeah,
Yep.
yeah, from going from one of them strikes out on his own and expands his brand, and the other one embezzles COVID relief money. It's just like, but I think that with the continued discussion about the time period and that sort of stuff, I'm gonna have to say that Jinder was the worst champion for WWE because it failed in what it was supposed to do. It was bad,
Oh, it was real bad. I would say
and
I would
like,
say
and one
like
of the high points is, hey, we brought Great Khali back for a run in spot with swish swish air quotes, and that it was
no, it was bad. It was real bad.
it
Because I
was it
think
was
like the best match of that of his reign was when AJ Styles beat him for the title. Because
because AJ can elevate damn near any. AJ's one of those guys that can have the match with the broomstick. He's
like I'll tell you, and it was really annoying because it came pretty close to like when they kind of redid the brand split, and you had which is actually one of my favorite more recent programs. Like so when Moxley had the belt and he was kind of feuding with AJ, and they were having kind of that back and forth, but they were screwing with each other like via James Ellsworth.
oh yes, by the chinless sex pest James
Yeah.
Ellsworth.
I think Conan used to call him Turtle Boy, which I thought was such
Hmm.
an apt name, but I thought that was I thought I that was like one of those programs I really enjoyed.
Yeah, and it was funny. It was fun because it was a little proxy war,
And that's how you
and
use a comedy jobber guy effectively too.
and it also showcased AJ as a professional because he went to go give Ellsworth a Styles Clash, and Ellsworth, like a lot of people in his conditioning, tried to tuck his chin for it, and AJ still managed to protect him. So, but in any event, yeah, for WWE, I gotta say it's Jinder.
I kind of agree with that.
It's just, God, it was. Here, I'm gonna steal Matt's word. It was ponderous. It just getting through anything with him in it was just like, oh, it was sleep aid in wrestling form for me.
Cause like okay, like I think an easy answer a lot of people watching this are gonna probably be screaming at us right now is Diesel. And so my defense of Diesel and why I wouldn't pick him is company was down. They lost the plot with him. He wasn't like Mr. Cool Guy anymore. They were kind of like wussing him up to be a face. His challenges were just garbage. And then I would say WrestleMania that year didn't help him because Michaels was sandbagging him the whole time.
Didn't Mabel hurt him right in the middle of that too?
It's SummerSlam, I think. He talked about it at one point because I
Yeah,
guess he I
He
don't know if
told
you.
Mabel not to do that sit down spot on his back.
Yeah,
He's like, "Don't do that, man. You hurt somebody with it before. Don't do it to me." And Mabel did it anyway and hurt him.
yeah, yeah.
So,
That might have been before that, but then he had like Sid, British Bulldog. Um,
which they're not bad as world title challengers, but they're not good matchups for Nash.
well, I mean, doing pay per view main event challenges with them
Yeah,
isn't great.
yeah, they're not a good matchup for Diesel. And like you said, they they made the mistake of they were turning this guy face, so they cut his balls off. So
Yeah, cause he was like he had like a good aura about him. Like when you watch stuff in like '93 or '94, like he really does have like an aura about him, and then they just like
mhm.
totally tank that. But I would not pick him. I think he's an easy choice, and he's not necessarily a
I
wrong choice. I think he wasn't a great champion, but I think he had like business. I don't think business was going to. I don't think he was going to do any business for starters. He wasn't going to do any business. I think the only person they could have put in that position that would have like held the ship stable in that era is Brett.
or maybe Taker.
Yeah, and I don't even think Taker would because Taker is kind of he wasn't like I don't think you could have put the company on that version of Taker.
Okay, yeah, because that was still in kind of the old west garb Taker, so
Yeah,
he hadn't really matured as a gimmick. Might be the best way to put it.
yeah, and
Like,
so I think Brett was really all they had in that era that would have been a stable hand, and yeah,
and you needed something different. You
yeah.
needed somebody else, and
And I think Nash was a worthy
given
shot. And I honestly don't think like I just don't think Scott Hall is like a world title guy.
I think he could have been, but they obviously didn't.
Yeah,
And considering who they had not already done the title with, they're wanting to elevate somebody new for that top tier. Because at that point, you had, what, Brett, Shawn, and Taker. I think that's who they really had at the time. Does that sound right?
yeah, because Perfect got hurt.
So you've got Brett, Shawn, Taker. So you need someone who could physically challenge Taker, which would make it different than Brett and Shawn versus Taker. So you're probably going to want another big guy, and they're not going to trust Sid because Sid's flaked out twice on them at that point. I mean,
Yeah,
of everyone they had that they were going to elevate, Nash was really the best choice, and so I'm not going to hate on Nash's reign. They say he's the lowest drawing, lowest paid champion. It's like, well, it was not a great period, and that's how the dice shook out.
yeah.
Making a
Someone's gonna get the short end of the stick there. I think he tried. I mean,
hmm
I think he tried.
yeah, I'm not gonna hate on
Now,
Nash for that.
I am going to nail him. So this is what we call a segue, people. So I am gonna shit on him for the second reign he had in WCW where he beat DDP for the title because I feel like that's where WCW kind of hit. No, that they could have come back from that. Where I feel like WCW died for me especially is when Sting turned heel. That's where I feel like and my line of demarcation for WCW and when it was a dead company because we have to set this up is when the Radicals left, there was no coming back. That was when WCW was like a zombie promotion.
You knew the ship was sinking when that happened.
Yeah, so
And
we're not gonna do like I think Jarrett was a poor choice for champion, but like he shouldn't belong on this list. He didn't like kill business or anything. It was already dead. So
I think Jarrett was in one of those places where he was probably the best choice available to them at the time.
yeah.
And now I will give Nash I will give him shit for his first world title reign because he is not the one who should have ended Goldberg's streak.
I would
That
agree.
was
I would agree
no,
with that, but I feel like because we've seen the company 5 months after that happened, and they were fine. They did one of their biggest buy rates. That's the thing.
yeah,
People talk about the finger poke of doom. They did one of their biggest um, buy rates in company history, like a month and a half after the finger poke of doom. Like
right.
what really killed them and what like started the erosion is when they did the double turn at Uncensored 99, because letting Flair talk them into turning heel again is really what hurt them badly.
Flair
Because
was that god awful stupid ass cage match?
yeah, Age in a Cage.
Oh
No, wait, was Pipe?
no, Age in the Cage was Piper Hogan,
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
but
that's because the thing was like through '98 and stuff, um, Flair was like their biggest draw on TV, like their
yeah,
biggest ratings segments.
was that match was that oh my god, was that damned Hogan Flair Yappa Pie in a cage, damn
Yeah,
stupid ass,
yeah, I think it was.
dumbass, stupid ass match?
Yes,
Hang on, now I've got to look because oh god, I hated that so because there was no.
because
All right,
all those people bought Super Brawl that year to see Ric Flair beat Hogan, and then they had Hogan beat him. Like that was the dumbest thing they've done.
yeah, and it was stupid because I think it was a strap match, and Hogan pinned him or some shit.
Yeah,
And look, if I'm gonna when it comes to WCW of this era, then when it comes to WCW in the world title, I'm of two minds. Again, I'm splitting hairs. Number one, I'm not splitting hairs because I'm indecisive. It's because it makes for better discussion. Um, but number one, if the worst singular reign, I would probably put on the Giant's first world title reign.
did he
It was
have
his
that for more than a couple days?
It was a day. If it is to be believed,
Did they strip? They
um,
stripped him of the belt, I think, after that.
yes, yes, he was stripped of the title due to the controversial finish of the Halloween Havoc match, because the Dungeon of Doom showed up and beat up on Hogan.
But Hogan tried to murder him. Like we watched that show. We watched that. Wait, is that the one we watched? Yeah, we.
It
No,
was a Halloween Havoc.
no, wait, was that?
The title could change hands on disqualification due to a contract clause.
Was that the one we watched where with the monster trucks?
I It was at the Joe Louis Arena in Detroit, so it may have
Oh yeah,
been.
no, it wasn't the Joe Louis Arena. Joe Louis Arena. It was Cobo
Bobo?
Hall. Yeah,
Okay. Well, in any event,
because remember, because he won the title, and then that's when the Yeti debuted, and they were like group humping Hogan at the end of no, I think they were gang banging Savage.
no, it was
It
the
was both of
double
them.
bear hug on Hogan.
Yeah, and it just looked like they
But
were
the
humping him.
Yeti is doing like the weird pelvic motions and
Yeah.
stuff.
But speaking of straps, I just want to, it's a quick aside, but the best gimmick match I've ever seen is one Memphis does where they do a lumberjack match, except the
Yeah.
lumberjacks have straps. Which, TK, if you're watching this, bring that back because it's awesome. Because then you go out of the ring, because you go out of the ring and you really don't want to because then they just start. Because I think Cornette said like you had to watch. I think it was Steve Kern or someone would really like get you.
Yeah. I can understand why that particular version of it fell by the wayside. Um,
Cornette did an interesting show way back when he still like talked about like wrestling, but he talked about like the philosophy of a good strap, like because you want like a thick one, like one that's wide because it doesn't hurt, but you get a good like sound out of it. But if you do like a thinner one,
yeah.
it hurts like really bad, but it doesn't get you don't get that good like thwack out of it.
It's the same principle as bumping. You spread out so that the impact is not located in one small spot. Um, but if it's singular reign, I would probably put it to that because he won by disqualification because of a contract clause with everybody running in. That is dumb as hell, and it's the Giants' first match. That is dumb as hell.
That's an out of
But
touch one because I think like world class, you could get the belt by disqualification.
it was just for that one match. But if I'm going to pick person, because I'm going to discard Voldemort's one-day reign because he left. If I'm gonna pick a person, then my answer on that is going to be Sid, because that was in 2000, in a time when things were all over the place. Like this, Sid's first reign lasted a day. Nash stripped him of the title as commissioner. Nash stripped him of the title and awarded it to himself.
Yeah.
Like, what the hell? And then Sid wins it back, and why? And then Sid loses it when all the titles are declared vacant by Bischoff and Russo. It's like Sid was not at the time I'm watching. It's like, oh, that's Sid. Okay. He did not feel like he added anything.
I would not pick on him too much because I feel like the whole company was in turmoil, and like it's gonna sound really crazy to say this, but he was an odd spot of stability from that like mid-January to like blackout era where like everything sucked, but like at least Sid was kind of like doing his thing as world champion and was kind of like dependable. Because I mean, this is also the era where I think was Al Green the dog.
It would have been before this because
Remember,
Al
like,
Green, the dog, was Goldberg's first heavyweight champion challenger.
Well, I don't think he was a dog in that era. I think like because remember
it was soon after that.
Remember they did that whole bathroom segment with him. That's like the one thing I remember of that era. Because like because like that 2 month era is like where I stopped watching for a while. Actually, I stopped watching quite a bit like from July of like 1999 through the end. Like other than like I really locked in for like the last 3 months when I thought it got better.
It did get better. And I still have a copy somewhere of the very last Nitro, and it's a good show.
Yeah.
It just felt like Sid was just treading water and not really adding anything. There were other people that could have been points of stability too, but they just didn't do it.
I can't really disagree with any of your choices because I was trying to think, and like I think Nash's second reign is what I would pick, but I was trying to think of other ones. And I'm like, man, like, there's like the one like that weird one Sting had where he turned heel that he had it for like a month. That one's bad.
Yeah, that one's real bad.
Most of the ones after Nash's second reign are bad.
That one I said where he awarded it to himself was his third reign.
Yeah, like Hogan beating Savage in '98 was kind of counterproductive, but it didn't last long.
It was like it was not long after that we had and this was so stupid. It's not long after it that we had the nefarious Ready to Rumble tie-in where David Arquette won the title in a tag match where whoever got the pinfall gets the belt. Like, DDP had it for a day.
Yeah.
And then Arquette won it, and DDP was supposed to celebrate. It's just like, this is... there was so much dumb stuff going on in this era.
Yeah, it was...
But... in any event, that's where I'm going to be on it, because I can't hate on Jarrett too much, because, Jarrett, he didn't get hurt. He worked hard. Booker was around in this era. Booker was working really hard. He was kind of this grassroots groundswell of support, all that sort of stuff. We're getting right up on the end, but man, I just cannot get behind Sid as champion in this era. He was doing the same shtick he had been doing in like '96,
Yeah.
except it was just really over the top, and it featured the infamous Sid runs out of the arena, stands on the flattened car, and screams Goldberg, Gold. Yeah, it's just like, man, this it sucks.
You know what's sad? I would have been so down for ECW Sid and WCW. Just
Right?
like that, like absolute maniac just coming in the ring and murdering people, like coming out with a stretcher and stuff. Like I don't even like Sid that much, but man, like his ECW stuff, like his debut and like the stuff, like I love the thing where like the Dudleys are like shit talking him to his face and he just blows this big bubble because he's chewing
Yeah.
gum the whole time. And
And
then
he's like, I don't care what you got to say. I'ma kill you.
and then Devon like goes to do so. He's like, "Oh crap, he's huge."
Yeah.
And
And
I think Spike helps him, and then he just murders Spike afterwards because, like,
he was basically a rabid dog in ECW. And that really worked. But then you put the world title on him in WCW and you're asking him to carry segments and he's doing these nonsensical ass promos. I'm like,
they should have just had him like. I would have still put the world title on, but man, just have him murder people. Like, just have him be like this absolute like crazed maniac that's just wrecking people.
And then it was also somewhere around in here he broke his leg, so
Don't watch that. That's horrific.
no, don't.
That
Oh
was
my god.
that was
Oh,
2001, I think.
was it? Okay.
Yeah, I'm surprised he ever wrestled again after that because that was brutal.
Yeah, frankly I'm kind of shocked too. But
So
so that's which company do we want to go to next?
let's do the AWA. Let's stick with some of the bigger boys for now. So
I'm gonna let you ride on this one because I ain't got much
okay, so
much
this
to
one,
add.
I'm gonna go with Vern Gagne in 80 and 81. So for context for this, Nick Bockwinkel had been the AWA World Champion for like 5 or 6 years at this point, and he'd done a lot of traveling. He had a lot of prestige to the title, and then Vern beats him. But the problem with this reign is Vern then like a year later like retires without putting anyone over, and it just I think that was like the beginning of the end for them because it really just kind of showed his priorities, and I just think it didn't work. And that's when I put because like so like anything after Henning I think is like dying days, and they made some bad decisions with the title. I think past that, like I don't think Stan Hansen worked, but they kind of screwed that up. Otto Wands I think was a bad choice. It was some German guy
Okay.
that no one had heard of. So,
Yeah.
but I would still go with the Vern thing because I think that was damaging. Like, they wasted this like great Nick Bockwinkel, title reign. He doesn't job it to anyone. Then they put the belt back on Bockwinkel, and
So there's
it's like
pretty much no point in doing it.
yeah, it was just like it was just to jerk himself off on the way out. And the thing is, they were doing like it was dumb because they were doing like a good like storyline with him and Mad Dog Fashawn at the time where it was the decades long rivals team up and win the tag titles together and they're working together and like all that stuff, and then he also wins the world title. So that's why I picked for the AWA. Like I don't think we've done any AWA on here. I was telling them I actually want to I want to talk to some guys and maybe get someone on that was like a fan of the AWA in its glory days and have them on to talk, because like the AWA is real easy to crap on because by the time you have footage of it, their format's very outdated. Like the TV is very boring. They don't give a lot away. So it's real easy to dismiss the AWA, but like it was like the Chicago promotion from like in the 60s and the 70s. So I think it deserves to have someone that has a fondness for it. Like I think advocate for it and talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
So let's stick with the old school stuff. So let's do the NWA. Which there is a only answer for this, but I'm gonna throw like the Colorado Kid, Mike Rapata out from like the 90s. Someone like Dick Hutton was kind of a failure back in the day, but I don't think he was like a bad choice. I just think he didn't work. But there's one answer to this.
Do you want here? I will write it exactly the way that I said it in our group chat. 1,000 times Tyrus.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
1,000 times. This is the second time I saw someone who was the champion of a major-ish promotion looked at him and went, I was such a better worker than he was. Like
I think I think I could have done some of that stuff better than him, and I'm an idiot. So
I'm like, seriously, the damn video of where he was supposed to hit the ropes.
Oh yeah.
And that's all I gotta say. Was embarrassing.
I still don't get the idea of why they put the belt on him and kept it on him, because I know everyone always says, well, they did it because they wanted the Fox News crowd, and I'm like, well, one, those aren't wrestling fans, but two, like, even if they were to check something out because of Tyrus, they're gonna know if something sucks, even if they don't know much about it. They're gonna be like, oh, this is dumb. Like people overuse exposing the business, but that is literal exposing of the business, because they're gonna tune in and be like, oh, this is dumb, and then not watch it again.
I like how John Oliver put it. When wrestling is good, it is better than your favorite thing. But when it's bad, it slits its own throat. Like, the extremes are incredible.
And they wasted Austin Idol on him too. I know. They wasted Austin Idol on him, but he's the answer. Like, I can't think of anyone that was worse. Like, they've made some bad choices over the years, but like
if you want a dog on Mike Rapata, I guess you could, but I mean, hell, this is a time where the NWA is scrambling for air oxygen and opportunity, trying to get somebody who's gonna do something to make things different, and I can't be mad at him for that.
Well, and I think the move to the CW, like, they've just disappeared. Like, no one even talks about them anymore.
Pretty much. It's not like the CW. I mean, the CW itself has fallen off in a big way too.
Well, I didn't realize. Did you read those articles? I think it came out last year. No, maybe it was the year before. Like, they've never made any money. CW's never made money. Like, even when they had all that Arrowverse and stuff, they were just like bleeding cash.
Wow, how do you have shows that were that popular and just hemorrhage like that?
I don't know. I just know I was surprised when I read it that they've never made money. Because, I mean, there was I'd say a good decade. I mean, well, that's not true. They've always had, even back in the WB days, they've always had stuff that, like, pop cultural wise, like Dawson's Creek, Seventh Heaven. The OC was a Fox thing, wasn't it?
I think so.
Was Gilmore Girls one of theirs?
Probably. I don't know enough about Gilmore Girls to say yes or no, but probably.
Then they had the Beauty and the Beast redo, iZombie, all the Arrowverse stuff. That Vampire Chronicles thing, I think, was one of theirs. Like, they had the teen girl and young 20-something demo on lockdown for a solid decade. So I don't know how they did not monetize that properly. I guess they just spent too much money.
I don't know, but
because they're trying to pivot. They're kind of trying to pivot to a weird, like, they have WoW on mine, now, and they're trying to pivot to a weird. I don't know what they're trying to be now. I think they're trying to be like a sports kind of thing, like live
Boy,
entertainment.
this is a weird time to go for that.
Well, I think it's the only thing
Uh,
that draws viewers and stuff, but you got to spend. I think is part of the problem there.
yeah, you gotta spend enough to get the sports people want to see on your channel.
Yeah,
So, which is the next promotion we want to roll into?
let's do ECW. Let's stick with like the older school, big names. So this one, I think we're both in agreement on this one.
For the sake of discussion, I have my pick, but for the sake of discussion, I could try and make the argument that Mike Awesome signing with another company while he still holds your title is a pretty damning thing.
Yeah,
But
he unfairly gets villainized for that too.
yeah, well, I mean, if he wasn't under contract, he got offered a boatload of money to go to another
He
promotion.
wasn't getting paid either.
He wasn't getting paid. That's the damn thing. Is he wasn't getting paid. He's carrying the banner for your brand. He's having matches that's drawing interest from people that don't normally care about ECW. And then WCW's like, "Hey, you want to hey, we'll offer you a big contract." And he got a pretty good amount of TV time there too. Like,
Yeah,
I can't be too mad at him for it.
he didn't
But
appear on TV with the belt. I don't think.
he did not. That's true. He did not. So in ECW, even against Brad's thing, Brad had kind of a moratorium against. I'm not picking on people who were there whenever a company was on a downswing, but
I
I'm
would
putting
say
Shane Just incredible.
I would no. I think ECW was viable until TNN like canned them. So Just Incredible
Mm.
would be like right on that borderline, and I feel like his reign. I'm not blaming him. Okay, right off the bat, I'm not blaming him for killing ECW, but I feel like when they put the belt on him, you could just tell it was over. Like, I think that's when a lot of people gave up on it. That's like the first time they really had a champion where you're just like, oh, he's really not.
Incredible had been in ECW. He had been a mid card heel threat, like a really good tag team with Lance Storm as the Impact players. So credit there. He was a guy who was really kind of the first one to have like a whole entourage of managers with him.
Yeah, we remember we
You know,
watched that one show and we were kind of like, wow, they're really trying to make him like a thing. I
but he was decidedly mid card. He was just not breaking through. He did not have the whatever. And the thing that I look at with this, he was not a good. Like the person after him, I think the person that took the belt off of him was Rhino, and unified the world title and the
No,
TV
it
title.
was
Because in his
like
words, it was
it
like,
was like I think Jerry Lynn beat him, and then no, there's a couple champions after that. So there's some combination of Jerry Lynn, Steve Carino, and then I think Tommy Dreamer, and then Rhino got it on the very last show.
okay. So, for example, with the names you just listed off there, because Rob Van Dam was gone by this point. Um, I think Sabu was gone at the time. So names that were around at the time, and I know they were around at the time. Dreamer was around, and I know Dreamer was around because that's who Credible won the belt off of.
Van Dam was there
Uh,
till the end. I think he had so he wasn't gone long because he was back because I went to a show in May of 2000. So Credible was the
mhm.
champion, but Rob Van Dam was healthy at the time. But remember he broke his leg in like January or February of 2000, and that's how he lost the TV title because he broke his leg.
Okay. Well,
But like
okay.
when I
So
went, it was like so when I went, it I think Just Incredible fought Mikey Whipwreck, and then I think Rob Van Dam fought Little Guido. Then it was like Sandman, Raven, and Tajiri against like Scotty Riggs, who was Scotty Anton at the time. Rhino. Who would the other one have been? I don't remember who the other one was. But that's like that was kind of like the main matches on that show. And I think like
So
it might have been Sandman. No, I did say Sandman
you
because
said send me on the other team.
I almost got Sandman almost like knocked me over when he did like his entrance because it was like in this um look it up if you want to see the building if you're watching this, the Newport Music Hall. So it's kind of like an old like smaller bands do that building. So it was standing room only, which I hate for wrestling.
Yeah.
But I had moved to get a better seat, and then he came through this like second story thing and almost like ran over me.
So consider who was around at the time. Dreamer, I'm pretty sure Raven was around, Sandman
Yeah.
was around. If Van
Tajiri.
Dam was around, like, well, Tajiri was still kind of mid. There were a bunch of people who I would have thought would have been way more credited. Rhino, I would have thought was way more credible than putting it on Just Incredible.
I don't think Dreamer
It's
ever
just,
got like a more than like a transitory reign. Like I think he did like
it
he
was
won
just
it.
in that one night he won it and then lost it to
Yeah,
Credible.
which I hated that at the time.
Well, it was supposedly Dreamer didn't want to win the world title. That was going to be a point of pride for him. And then they did it, and I don't know why they did it, but they did it, and then they put it on Credible from there.
See,
It's like, if you're going to do it, go with it.
this is why Tommy Dreamer is a bad creative because like especially when things are starting to like go downhill a bit, like I think I think giving the belt to him for a couple of months would have been smart.
You've got your effective babyface of the promotion right there. And you don't want to, you're never going to put the world title on him? No.
Yeah.
No. Just don't. It's just like Danielson saying, I don't want the AEW world title. It's like, dude, take it. Like, come on, man.
I think Danielson's found a good balance there.
Maybe, but still, what does that do? That if for no other reason, it puts Danielson in the list of champions for the company.
Yeah.
In a place where this guy's been working really hard, he's been doing great stuff. God's sake, man, let them have your name on their list of champions. Just go with it. But and I would have done that with Dreamer, but look, I'm just gonna say Credible.
Well, and Dreamer was like the top face for like a number of years. Like I mean, they kind of dropped the ball with Rob Van Dam too. Like doing the TV title thing was fine, but I think there was a point where he should have, and he was kind of like the top star, like towards the latter part of that reign where his stuff was more important. But like, they should have had the world title on him at like some random point.
He should have transitioned from the TV title to the world title, yes.
Yeah.
But in any event, that one's pretty cut and dry. So which company do we go to next?
Let's do Impact / TNA.
So from reading over this, I've got gaps in my knowledge about this company.
I do too.
100% admit it. But the person I'm going to pick is for a very, like, it's for a reason that I feel like is exemplified with one specific incident. And I think it was Jeff Hardy staying at Victory Road.
Oh, is it?
Jeff Hardy was so jacked up. And, that match went off terribly. And yet, they knew that Jeff was off the wagon. How could they not know?
So they couldn't find him is what the problem was. Like
I don't mean that night.
Oh,
I don't
okay.
mean that night. I mean in general.
No, because there's a big contingent of people that like are like, how could you let him go out there and blah blah blah, and like they've interviewed like Bischoff, they've interviewed a lot of people. They're like, we could not we could not find him. Like we literally
Yeah.
could not find him until he was out there. Because I think even like doesn't Bischoff like come out and talk to Sting?
Yep.
Because if
100%.
you haven't seen it, he's just screwed up, and you can tell Sting's pissed. And Bischoff comes out and talks to him, and then Sting like Scorpion like pretty much shoots Scorpion, death drops him, and then just like legitimately like pins him.
He Scorpion Death drops him straight out of the gate, and then Shoot wraps him up for a pin. Hardy's trying to kick out.
Yeah.
And it's just 1, 2, 3, we're out. They give Sting the belt and he gets out of it. Like it was horrendous. And here's that one instance for me is it's not the reason, but it is the easy thing to point to and say that's why this should not have been a thing.
Yeah, that's a good one. I'd pick Abyss. Like I like Abyss. I think Abyss would have been fine as a world champion at some point. But like they spent all that time building up Sting in 2006. And this is the NWA title, but we're counting it as the TNA title. So, just FYI. This is the NWA title this is for, but I'm counting it as the TNA title. So, they do all this stuff. Sting beats Jarrett for the title. And a really good ending too, because if you haven't watched it, so it kind of ends the Jeff Jarrett main event era. It's the only thing I think TNA ever really got right to wrap up an angle. So they have their big main event, and Jarrett like guitar shots Sting, and Sting pretty much no sells the guitar shot, and then insta like submits Jarrett with the Scorpion Deathlock, it's a really good ending. And there's this great shot if you can find it of like Sting celebrating and Jarrett just sitting there in the corner like totally dejected. And it was like such a great end to like his reign, and he never got like the world title after that. So like he went out right. But so a month later, like I think Abyss even beats him by DQ to get the title, because that was like when they freaked out and like brought Russo back. So it's just the fact that they cut Sting short like that on something that like was getting them attention. Like they drew a good house for that, and they drew a good buy rate for that show. And then they did that while they had like the Joe Angle thing that drew like legitimate attention for them too.
Oh man. Dude. Well, okay. Joe Angle was good. My problem with it was I really hated that they took a guy who was on the rise and then fed him to the new guy coming in.
I don't know how
like,
you couldn't have.
I hated that.
You couldn't have beaten Angle. I think they should have done a draw.
I think that they should not have had Angle Joe as the first program.
I know, but they had that great confrontation though, where Angle like headbutted Joe, and then he's doing his thing, and then there's just this bloody Joe like rising up behind him, and he just kicks Angle right in the head. Like that was right before the pay-per-view, and that was such an awesome angle. Like that visual of like just Joe like standing behind him like busted open was so great.
Yes. I agree with you. That was great. But there was no good way to end that. There was no good ending to have to that, because either you kill the new guy coming in or you kill this guy who's on the way up and not fully established yet. I would not have done that.
No, I get why they did it, but they could have waited.
They should not have done that.
Yeah. So
but
Jeff Hardy's a good choice though.
Okay. Yeah, that's just.
I think Ken Anderson got
a company.
I think Ken Anderson got a title reign in there somewhere too.
You know, I even kind of get that, because the guy's he was competent in the ring and he was a good talker. Cool. Like, I understand you're like, well, okay, let's cash in on this and see what we can get out of it.
Yeah.
All right. But no, Jeff just being a liability with the title on him.
Yeah.
I just can't. So
let's do AEW. Because AEW has a very short list of choices here. So
yeah.
I think
you and I are going to differ.
Well, I tend to agree with you. I'm more going to mention one for conversation. So I think the obvious choice is CM Punk. Now, I would say the second reign is the worst one.
My problem, I mean, our problems are well documented, but if you want a good example, not just brawling, whatever, but like he does this dumbass thing where he's out in the ring to cut a promo and calls out Hangman Page, who isn't even in the building,
Yeah.
and then shits on him. It's like, no, okay, you just took one of the most over people in the company and you dumped on him because your widow feelings was hurt.
Well,
Like,
remember he said he freaked out because he thought Page was shooting on him in their match, and it's like,
it was just a bad chop.
and people have called him out for this though, as like, you're gonna say that about the guy that literally killed himself to make your botched buckshot lariat look halfway acceptable.
Yeah. This is the guy that saved you falling on your ass twice. It's like, no.
So what would you?
It's
So what are you gonna go with his first reign? His first reign he beats Page in a bad feud. I would
he
say,
beats Page in a bad feud because there was nothing for Page to work with.
yeah.
Like there was straight up nothing
One
for
of them,
a fiery baby face to work with.
one of them
And then you
needed to
get
be
butthurt when they come up with something.
Well, Punk should have been the more heelish one in my opinion, and he wouldn't
absolutely
do
should
it.
have.
And then Page was doing this weird kind of like half heel, half face thing, and he was trying to split the difference, and it didn't work.
Page was this massively over baby face. He was this over baby face, and now you're going to put him in this program, and you're not going to give him anything to latch on to.
Yeah, and then so then he gets hurt the next night. What did he did like a what did he do that injured himself?
He did a crowd dive and broke his foot.
Yeah, so that's the first reign. But like where I think the second reign is worse, in my opinion, is he gets hurt in the match, which I'm not gonna hold that against him. Like they should have known better, but shit happens. Like the first reign, he got hurt. It happens. Some guys are gonna get hurt. But like where the second reign I think is worse is because Brawlin happens afterwards, and that was a real black eye on the company that took them a long time to recover from. And then you could also say, then he did the fake world title thing on Collision, which would kind of still theoretically count. Now the one thing that did happen in this era that I'm not going to blame him for, but I'm going to bring up because I hated it, and I hope no one ever does this again, but the interim title shit they were doing was dumb, and it caused so much drama over like
that. It was at the time. It was like, okay, I can kind of understand why you want to do this, but it didn't. For wrestling, it doesn't work.
And it killed the locker room morale because I guess like people get real attached to their fake play titles.
Well, because what it does is if you keep putting interim next to it, the feeling is you're effectively telling them that, hey, you've got this, but I don't actually have faith in you to carry like the real thing.
Yeah.
Look, it's something that I understand why they tried it, but it didn't work.
And
it did not need to continue.
It really tanked morale too. Like it caused a lot of drama. Like because you're gonna think like, oh, it's just wrestling and like it's all predetermined and it's not like the UFC or something where it's like you worked hard. I mean, I'm not saying a wrestler doesn't work hard to become a champion because you do, but I'm saying it's a different thing where like in like the UFC, like you may never get a shot again. You may never be able to put together enough wins or get the right amount of luck for that to happen again. Whereas wrestling, the bookers might put the belt on you again, but like, so it's kind of surprising how much drama that caused. But I guess it like you said,
in wrestling, it's more about being given a title is a recognition that of your hard work and that you are worth being in this status. Like we trust you enough, we recognize your hard work, You're over enough. It is recognition that we have enough faith for you to do this. And it people getting butthurt about their play titles is more about the statement of, okay, you didn't trust me enough, or you don't actually recognize the work that I do, or something like that. As opposed to it being undermining you achieving it, it is instead, it's like
You kind of are.
getting a backhanded good work review. It's like, well, he does fine for where he is.
I
And it's
still,
just like,
I still remember you telling me. I think it was you. It might have been one of the other guys, but talking about you're backstage and you're watching some guy getting ready to go out and he kissed the belt before he went out, and I still get douche chills from that because it's just like ew.
it's just like, no. No. But in any event, yeah, that was me.
Okay, I get that. I was like that. I think that was Shad, but like I could have
Yeah.
seen Alex talking about that.
Alex knew who it was. Alex knew this guy also. But the truth of the matter is, it doesn't. I'm not going to bury the guy, because
No,
I got along with him decently well. It was just kind of like, dude, don't do that.
no, but there's other people that get like real weird about belt. Like, and I've seen this like in like other discussions and stuff. Guys get real weird about belts. And it's like, come on, like I get it to a degree, but it's like I don't know. Like,
Yeah.
because I guess for me, if I was in that position, it's like, yeah, like a belt would be nice, but like I'd rather be getting stable work and doing something cool.
The reason that I wanted to carry a title before I hung my boots up is because it's something I hadn't done. And I
Yeah.
finally did pull it off. Like, I was over enough to do it. It might be serendipitous that I went out the way I did, because the guy that I was working with at the time was going out of his way to kind of be a little shit about undermining me. And if we had had one more match and we had done it again, then I was going to throw hands. Like, that's how pissed off about it I was. But in any event, yeah, for me, that's pretty definitive on the worst world champion for the company, because everybody else who's held the title, it has been a very carefully curated list of people who have held it, and they have done things that, either their chase story, or nobody else who's held that title has had a flop, really.
MJF, I think
No, I will argue that one with you.
they kind of went
100%.
cold on him. I think it was too WWE, which I think I wouldn't say it's as bad as Punk's. I would say though there were a lot of things, especially after the Pillars match. I think up to the Pillars
So,
match it was fine. After that, it started to have some problems. Like it started
I
getting a
love
little
that Pillars match was amazing. I
yeah.
loved watching that. That was a lot of fun.
But
Here's what I'm gonna say: especially if this is on the Brochachos angle.
no, it's fine. I didn't. The Brochachos thing was fine because they kept that limited. It was like some of the in-ring like stuff, and especially like when you got past like Wembley, that last end run, like there were interesting things about it, like how they did some stuff, but like he just got
Okay,
a little weird in the promos and stuff, and he was getting too cutesy with it.
and
Like,
and he was getting, okay. So fair point. Because I will say, Wembley, that is like the largest live pro wrestling crowd that was not mandated to be there at gunpoint. Um, and the whole building lost its mind for that angle. After that, MJF is hurt. It seemed to me, okay, this is probably me playing armchair psychologist, but it seemed to me he's hurt. It's affecting his everything else, because he's kind of running low on steam. he's probably in enough pain that it's affecting him on a daily basis, and he's having a hard time keeping the juices flowing and that sort of thing. But that's the thing. It's all part of the same reign, and MJF was incredibly over. So I'm going to say that for me, that discussion holds no water.
I think he's still like, I would not put it in the same category as Punk, but if you're gonna list off like the other champions for me, like he's the weakest reign out of the others. And I mean that's still, I mean the other reigns are all good though. That's the problem. Like there hasn't been like another bad reign. I mean, especially like you're talking the first Moxley reign, I think is probably still the best one. Then you have
Okay.
Kenny's reign. I would say is second. Then what do we have? I put Joe's third, then Page, then probably Jericho, and Swerve hasn't like had enough time yet. I don't
We
think.
haven't. Swerves hasn't finished, so we can't judge it as a whole right now.
But like
I don't like I don't like judging things that aren't done yet on a list like that.
I would say Mox's first reign, Kenny and Kenny and Joe would be like, well, and Page would be like the Mount Rushmore of reigns.
Yeah, I could see that. But even then, by your own words, MJF's reign was the drop off at the end.
Yeah, but it's
And
still like I still say there was a solid 4 or 5 months where it was kind of losing some steam.
well, and that isn't that all. That's also where Adam Cole broke his ankle. So they're trying to. I'm pretty sure they're just trying to.
No, he was still. I think he was still healthy through some of that end
Some
run.
of it.
Yeah,
Okay.
because he broke
Well,
his ankle. When did he break? Man, like this is only a couple years ago, and my timeline's really bad. He broke his ankle right after Wembley, didn't he? At the
yeah,
next show,
I think so.
or right after the next show. It was in September of that year, I think, is when he broke it. If I
And so
remember.
they rode that out until um, World's End, Year's End, whatever the name on that one is.
Yeah.
But it's because they had to ride that one out because they felt like they had done all this build with the devil angle that they had to pay it off. And it's like I get that.
I thought the devil angle payoff was fine. Like it was
It was
people
fine, but they had to get there.
yeah,
And so they're taking everything stuff that they're calling audibles at the time and trying to stretch the plays out to get them there. And I can understand, things are dropping off in that stretch.
but I think
Um,
I think people were mad about that and I'm like one, they told you the whole time who the devil is going to be. And if it wasn't going to be Adam Cole, then it didn't make sense. Like a surprise is not good if you lied to get there.
if it doesn't make any sense, then it doesn't matter.
Yeah, and
It's
it was
like let's just say
and
off
that's
the top of it.
that's kind of a thing that AEW does though with their booking, and it's not bad. Is they telegraph what's going to happen to you. They tell you like this is what we're going to do, and I think typically that's fine. I think that's why their pay per views haven't suffered buy rate wise, even when the ratings go down, and why so many of their fans pay is because you pretty much go into a show and they say, okay, well, this is what we're going to do. And like sometimes you don't know, but it's like, okay, if you buy this pay per view, you're going to see the guy you want to see win the title, is kind of what they do. And then they don't go like, oh, ha ha, we tricked you, which other companies do.
You get what you pay for effectively.
Yeah.
If you have a pretty good idea of what's going to happen and that's what you want to see, you're typically probably right, and that's not a bad thing.
No.
Giving your fans what they want, that means they're happy and they want to see more of it.
And if you
But
don't, they trust you enough to like give you. It's not like, because we talked about already, it's not like WCW. Like when WCW would screw you on a pay per view, it hurt back in the day.
and a lot of times, especially in '99, yeah, in throughout '99, it made no damn sense whatsoever.
No.
And so it felt pointless. Why would I get involved? It's like no one will ever see it coming. It's like I don't care. Yeah,
Remember,
just because I couldn't see it makes no sense. I can't be invested in it.
remember when Rick Steiner had the dogs attack Sting on pay-per-view?
I remember a Nitro where at the beginning of the show, Rick Steiner and Sid are feuding with each other, and then at the end of the show, Rick Steiner and Sid are helping each other. And there's no explanation in the middle of it for what happened. It's just they went from hating each other's guts to having each other's back in 2-3 hours time with nothing filling it in.
Man, that summer of '99 is brutal. I've thought about going back and like trying to watch it, but I'm like, I don't even know. Like, I know it's been a long time, but I'm like, man, I don't even know how they're gonna fill this TV time with like people. Because I don't even remember. And like the No Limit Soldiers thing is '99, and that was just so tone
That
deaf.
didn't it didn't fit at all, but that didn't last that long.
Well, I mean, it felt
Um
like it, but like what I don't understand is
yeah,
like
that's true.
what I don't understand is how are they the faces? Because like the rednecks were always like going up against like like they were always like going in against bigger odds. They were always outnumbered and stuff. And like when you thought about a lot of it, like even the way that the No Limit Soldiers were behaving, it's kind of like, man, like in hindsight, like the rednecks were being like faces and like the mechanics of a lot of it. And then they did that song that was like funny.
Well, that was the thing is the West Texas Rednecks had two songs and they had funny videos with them and that sort of stuff. And I'm pretty sure that the No Limit Soldiers thing came from Master P selling Bischoff on the idea.
And
And so Bischoff like followed through on it because he believed the guy
and like I think it hurt because Henning and like Barry Windham just seemed like they were having so much fun doing it.
yeah,
And then I mean like then the best was like Curly Bill.
Curly Bill.
and like
So,
and like oh man, he just died recently too. Oh, that I know, I'm sad.
yeah. So that was AEW reign. I think the worst champion were both pretty firmly in that it was Punk.
Yeah.
Um,
And we're
so
saying are we agreeing the second reign is the worst reign?
I'm just saying the whole damn thing.
Okay.
Um, and so I think the only company really left for us to do is Ring of Honor.
Yeah, so I think we're going to be in agreement with this. So, let's bury the lead a bit and talk about some of their other failures at the time. So, I think Davey Richards when they got on TV was a really bad pick.
Mm-hmm.
Just there's a lot to not like about Davey Richards. Like Davey Richards, the person's kind of unlikable, but like being a spot monkey doing like faux MMA moves, like just like here's the thing I should have said last week when we were talking about things to young indie workers to not do. Don't please do not under any circumstances in pro wrestling do worked MMA stuff. It does not work.
It just doesn't because they can see the real thing on TV and they can tell the difference. If you want to do MMA inspired a little bit, because you want to use a key lock or a Kimura or a triangle choke, okay, I get that. But you cannot do worked MMA stuff. It's too easy to compare to the real thing and you get crapped on.
The only person I've ever seen do worked MMA convincingly, well, no, that's wrong. I've seen Tom Lawler does it pretty good and Josh Barnett does it pretty good. But like
Mm-hmm.
something like Bloodsport's different. Like Bloodsport differentiates itself enough.
Yeah. So that one almost doesn't even really count. I mean, for God's sakes, Ken Shamrock didn't do that. Ken Shamrock did MMA inspired pro wrestling. So just don't. But
Dan Severn didn't do MMA stuff.
no. Um, I mean, I know that we kind of leaned in on the meme and bagged on Gresham a bit, but I mean,
He's dying days. He doesn't count because
okay,
he was like COVID champion and
Oh, okay,
So
okay, I
I
got you.
don't think Gresham should get.
Okay, well,
He's not
then
someone I'd put the belt on, but like I I I specifically didn't want to talk about him because I feel like he just was not in a situation to
it's
succeed.
just not really fair. Okay,
Yeah.
fair enough.
Um.
Um, okay, here, I'll give you one. I'm gonna give you a facetious answer. Okay,
Mhm.
this is not one for to be taken seriously. It's just because I hate the guy. Low key was a terrible champion. You should not have put the belt on him.
So he was a big name on the indie circuit. I think he was fine-ish at the time. I would have done. I always would have done AJ Styles quicker, but like I think Low key was their ace guy. He was fine.
No, low key was never fine.
I know
I've got a
that's
gimmick, man. I got to
yeah.
lean into it.
Um, Tyler Black, aka Seth Rollins, was kind of a failure. There's some extenuating circumstances there. Trying to think of latter days guys.
I'm gonna get a voicemail sometimes. Want to talk shit about low key? And it's like, yeah,
Cody
yeah,
kind of
sure I will.
bombed. Cody kind of bombed. Matt Taven was absolutely terrible. Absolutely terrible.
Well, and those are all true, but those are still not going to be my pick.
No, and so do you want to just? So we're
And here's
going
the
to the
thing.
early
Yeah,
days.
this is I'm not the hardest part is, and dear God, Eddie Kingston would chew me out for this. It's and it this is honestly it boils down to the fact that it was a new promotion and they were using their their first title holder not to build the title, but using the title to build the guy.
Well,
And they
it
should
was
not have done that with Xavier.
it was weird though because if you go back and like, cause you've seen the early shows too, but like if you go back and watch the early shows, he was a mid carder and he wasn't even like. I think like they had done like 6 or 7 shows at that point, and I bet he was like 4-2. Is like if you wanted to talk, because
Just
he did the stuff with Scoot Andrews. I think he lost one of those, and then I think he lost another one, and I think Loki had only had like one title defense against AJ Styles, and then the match he won it in like was so weird how they like did like how they because did he join the Prophecy during the match he won it in? Do you remember?
I don't remember. My problem with that whole thing was the simple fact that I mean I had a copy of the
Takedown
very
Masters.
first no the very first Ring of Honor show.
Yeah, did you get
Is that what it was?
the one that they sold in stores for like $10, the Takedown
Yeah,
Masters one? Yeah, I had.
yeah.
They did
And
like the first 4 shows of those on the Takedown Masters, I think.
and well, the one that I had was the first show. It was a bunch of stuff from the first show, I'm pretty sure.
And that had
And
was that I think that had Eddie versus Super Crazy on it.
I, mm,
Eddie was on it. I don't remember who he wrestled though. I think it was Super Crazy.
okay, I do not remember. I'd have to dig it out and probably watch it again with new eyes, but man, he just didn't stand out. You know,
Wasn't a great worker. No charisma really. He was way too indie too.
he
I mean,
he was
when your gimmick is doing like an X with your hands repeatedly because your name's Xavier, like yeah,
my problem with Xavier was that he was too much of the wrong things for indie wrestling at the time. And he didn't stand out enough. He didn't really have an aura or anything to him. It just did not um man, it didn't work. And
you wouldn't even
I
remember him if he hadn't have won the title. I think is like
yeah, that's honestly what it feels like. And so man, I know I'm speaking poorly of the dead, but it's
just a bad
just not a
choice.
good champion, yeah.
And you had better choices. Like so, you had like You had AJ there. Joe wasn't quite there yet. You had Daniels, but I think he was the tag champ there.
Danielson. Oh
Yeah.
yeah, Christopher. Yeah.
You had like Doug Williams, you had Danielson. I think even like Amazing Red, like for a short period, could have worked as like an underdog guy.
I agree with you on that because that was at a time when Red was. It felt like Amazing Red was ahead of the cutting edge of a lot of high flyer stuff. Like he was a step beyond almost everybody else. And then in doing so, you could have had it, that I feel like that would have been a draw because it's like, oh, does he do that high flyer stuff? And you're like, no, you don't understand, dude. He's like he's a step above him. And if you had ridden that, even if he got hurt,
Which
when he did get hurt and it changed his, that messed with his style and everything,
he never
you still could have gotten that out of him.
he wrestled and was still like good after that, but like that knee injury he had, he never quite recovered.
He wasn't the same.
And
And that's hard.
and he was his charisma was underrated.
He he carried a bit more. I don't know. There was just something
He was sympathetic.
to him. There was just something special to him. So
Yeah. Do we have any?
Um,
Do we have anything else on the list? Because
I did not have any other promotions on my list.
Because there's like
It's
a bunch
just
of like New Japan would be Tadeo Yoshida, but like Shad hasn't seen a lot of New Japan.
I had
Lucha,
thought if I looked at the New Japan list, I had thought the shoe-in hate for you would have been evil, but
no, he was just kind of mid. No,
okay,
Tadeo Yoshida like literally could not. It was like an MMA guy they brought over, and he could barely wrestle.
okay,
And they
fair
put the
enough.
belt on him for like a month or something, and kind of cut Yuji Nagata off because like what they did is they did this tournament to fill it, and then he won it by beating Yuji Nagata, and then they tried to turn around and give like Yuji Nagata a reign. Lucha like belts aren't like super important in Lucha, so like picking a bad Lucha World Champion kind of doesn't matter because it's it doesn't matter. Like most of their world champions are bad, but like you're in Lucha for like the personal rivalries and stuff, and the belts are kind of ancillary. And honestly, they forget about the belts sometimes. Like there's like these offshoot like weirdo promotions like in the '70s and stuff, but and then there's like World Class had like their world title for a bit, but like I mean, who cares? It was for a couple years, and
Yeah,
like they were on borrowed time anyway, so I don't even think any of them would count. I guess the USWA like had a world title for a while, but it's the Memphis thing where it changed hands all the time. So again, it's
yeah,
Memphis, so like the belt's there and stuff, but it changes hands every week. You're really there for like the personal rivalries, and like the
yeah.
belt's just kind of a prop there. Um, but I think what surprised me, so looking through this, just as much as I don't like WWE, like they've done a pretty solid job of they might not put the title on who you want them to, but they've been
Hmm.
pretty good other than Money in the Bank. Money in the Bank has kind of screwed it up a bit, but they've been pretty good about not putting the belt on bad champions.
Not putting the primary belt on bad champions, yeah, because I mean, for a long time, they had, they had other world titles that they could screw around with.
Yeah.
And so, all right, fine, I guess you can do that if you want to. But I'm not, for their big belt, they've been pretty safe with it. And I mean, to be honest, I mean, yeah, bagging on CM Punk and AEW, but I mean, he was a good champ for WWE, so that worked. But just not in the other company. So
Yeah. He just can't stay healthy. I think. I mean, like he had problems,
not
but I
not
think,
anymore. Yeah,
and I kind of wonder. I kind of wonder if they're going to be foolish enough to try and put the belt on him because, and this is not like a, I mean, I don't like Punk, but when you bring that up, some people get real defensive. Like, no, I'm not talking about quality. I'm talking about the fact that, like, I don't think he can stay healthy. Like, because if I was booking WWE, I would just do a Cody verse with Punk. I would give him his own thing. He can exist in that bubble, and then if he gets hurt, like you don't have to like change a whole lot, and he can still do promos and stuff. But I think that's the best use for him. Is just segment him
I
off in like his own side thing, and like use his name and stuff. Give him programs, let him talk, and
just
just
don't get belts involved, because once you do that, if you get belts involved with people who
can't stay
seem
healthy.
kind of who are snake bit,
Yeah,
then I mean, you're really. Do you have a backup plan if it happens?
and he's
And
like,
it better be a pretty good backup.
and he's getting like into that territory. I'm gonna bring football into this. He's getting to that territory. You know when like you watch like basketball or football, and those guys just start getting those injuries where it's like it's their body just saying like I can't do this anymore.
It's like Larry Bird late in his career had back issues.
Hmm.
When he could play, he was outstanding, but it got to be more and more times when he couldn't play.
Oh, he was playing in a big old back brace like that last year, I think.
Yeah,
But like
but even
remember like Tony Romo's last year, like I think he just had like bones like just breaking left and right. Like if he just got touched and it's like, oh yeah, he's done because and people would like argue with, he's like, no, I'm not saying he sucks. I'm saying his body literally can't do it anymore.
his bump card's full,
Yeah.
and you know, we're gonna see if Aaron Rodgers is the same way. But I'm looking at it going, you know, we're in that danger zone.
Well, I don't know. They brought a new bunch of line people in, but I mean they were going to get him murdered last year, even if he was healthier. Because I mean, I watched a couple of their games, and poor Zach
Yeah.
Wilson was like running for his life the whole time because they could not stop anything. But I
Well,
think would he tore his
he
Achilles,
tore
right?
his Achilles. Yeah,
Did
that is a hell of an injury.
did Kirk Cousins tear his Achilles too, or is it just his ACL?
I don't.
But yeah, I'll be interested. I think he'll if they can keep people off of him, I think he'll be fine. But he had problems with his like his last year in Green Bay. Like he broke his. I mean, it shows how talented he is though, because he was having like a decent season, and like I think he broke his like throwing thumb.
Yeah, something like that.
Because people don't understand, like especially like football, like they don't understand like how getting something like turf toe is just devastating on positions because
It sounds like nothing, but it's when you're playing at that high level, it's a big deal.
yeah.
So
If it, like for people that haven't like if you want to know how important your toes are, break your big toe like I've done, and you will realize how much you pump things when it hurts really bad.
and how hard it is to walk on it, because that's basically you're getting so much of your stability from that.
Yeah.
But in any event, what we're saying is that anybody who's even in the dangers, you know, if someone's in the danger zone of being injury prone, which we have plenty of evidence to say that this particular person
Well, and he
is,
tore, was it his triceps he's tore?
both of them, I think.
Yeah, because
And
and I'm not throwing shade here because we don't judge on that, but like I had read too that that might be a side effect of him using steroids, which I'm not judging because we've talked about it numerous times on this show that you can like it's
you can
not
do it safely.
yes, and that
You,
that that is a
but
side effect, but like it's not like back in the day where like guys you just cycle now and like you're a
yeah.
doctor showing you how
So
to a
the
doctor's
thing,
talking you through it and
the
stuff.
the thing that, and I would have to talk to some people to confirm this, but the thing that it seems to be to me is it's real easy to overdevelop certain muscle groups when you're not used to the kind of muscle mass that you get out of that. Undertaker tore his pec. I think Batista tore a pec, something like that.
Batista tore a lot of stuff though, but
Yeah.
Batista had Batista tore a lot of stuff, but Batista had show muscles.
Yes,
'Cause I,
that's what I'm saying is Batista had a lot of show muscles, and the connective tissue wasn't that strong. Or if you're not used to that kind of muscle growth, you might overdevelop a certain muscle, and then that muscle being overdeveloped is going to cause an injury.
because
So,
that's when I knew. That's when I thought Rock might actually wrestle for them. Is when he came back in the fall, and it's obvious he had slimmed down a lot. And I'm like, oh,
mhm,
um, I think he might wrestle because he's obviously gotten rid of a lot of the bulk. And even
yeah,
like when Batista came back and Batista had obviously kind of wasn't as cut and stuff because he was doing more of the Hollywood thing, he did better with
hmm
his health because that's the thing I think people don't understand is not all muscles are created equal. And you do different things like so if you ever do like weightlifting, like they teach you like okay, well if you want to be cut, you lift this way. If you want just
if you want
functionality and be strong,
mass, it's different.
yeah.
And but the thing that happens, and I know I've said it on here before, is that if you use machines for your weightlifting, you don't strengthen your connective tissue. You don't strengthen your connective tissue, you're going to get tears because your major muscle groups are going to overpower your connective tissue, and it's going to rip.
And if you don't
So,
stretch properly.
yeah, that too.
'Cause
That was
people
something that I always did that I never saw anybody else in the locker room do, was stretch. And I'm just like, nope.
I
I
had
have
a
pulled enough muscles and everything. I know what I need to do.
so I had a warehouse. I had a couple of warehouse jobs during the recession in 2008. And so there was one company I worked for where like the shift managers would make you do stretches before you went on shift.
Hmm
And god damn it, the 6 months I worked there, my back did not hurt once.
That was, and I mean, it's preparation. You're warming yourself up and loosening up what needs to be loosened up. It's the right thing to do, but, you know,
And you gotta, yeah, like you said, you gotta get the muscles warmed up and stuff. And I think especially at his age though, like you got to start doing more. You're not young anymore. Like I can just tell you from like my age, I tell people all the time about like when I got into my 40s, I'm like, yeah, I can do everything I could do in my 20s, but the next morning's where it's going to be different.
once, right?
Yeah.
I can't. You know, my neck's screwed up now, my shoulder is screwed up, my hips screwed up. I can't do everything I used to be able to. And that's really hard because it's like all this stuff that I spent 20 years learning and refining and practicing and stuff I can't do now. What the hell am I supposed to do with all that?
Yeah.
Now it just sits there and I can't do anything with it. So
Well,
anyway, I'm not gonna.
it's kind of unfair for me though to say that because I'm considerably smaller
Mhm.
and I eat better and stuff, so I'm in better shape. So yeah, I like doing yard work and stuff is easier at 43, but I weigh a lot less and I'm in better shape because of that. So yeah, it is easier for me because I'm not as much of a fat fuck anymore. So
Yeah, and I'm comparing myself to like being at fighting weight when I was in
yeah.
my early 20s, and that just doesn't work.
So
In any event, I think we can kind of call a wrap on this one. We would, yeah. Hey, if you guys think we're off base, we'd love to hear from you on social media. Let us know.
yeah, and we tried really hard to not like. I don't know. We try really hard with a lot of stuff. Like we go off on WWE sometimes, but I try, especially me, try really hard to be fair with everything on this show. And like, yeah, this is the worst world champions, but it wasn't like meant to hate on people. It's kind of why
It,
we picked specific reigns and kind of tried to give
yeah,
context of why we thought that. But usually, like, I think that's one thing I've learned from the show, especially when I go back to watch old stuff, is most guys back in the day weren't like certain guys were limited and there are guys that were bad, but like most guys were good at something.
yeah. They had something that made them get signed. You know,
Yeah.
there were not a lot of people there that were just there as like a project. So
Yeah.
anyway, we would love to hear from y'all, like I said, and any requests or anything like that, I guess. And so, this is Shad and Brad. I can't do our regular sign off, but
Oh, Craigbot's
thank
here.
you all.
Craigbot's
Oh
here.
yeah, yeah. This is Shad and Brad and Craig. We've been in 3 corners. You're in the 4, and we'll see you next time.